What's up, legends, and welcome back to another Unmatched First Impressions video. Today I am looking at Doctor Strange, the second character from the new Unmatched Marvel Brains and Brawn set, which Restoration was very kind to send me a free preview copy of so that I could make these videos. And here they are. Here are my own original thoughts. I'm so sorry. I said this before, but Doctor Strange is my favorite non-Guardian of the Galaxy character in Marvel. I got his shirt. I have Doctor Strange merch. I'm so special. But for real though, like, I love this character, just how powerful he is. The like arrogance aspect of it's so fitting with what Baked Goods tries to be. I love the colors. Love colors. And it's just magical. That was bad. So anyways, Dr. Stephen Strange. Very cool mini. He's like hovering on an overflowing pile of spaghetti and meatballs, but he's thinking about how to best beat you with the art of... I don't know what it's called. Kamartage is the place. It's not called... It's not like... Okay, whatever. I'm showing my knowledge of this character. I know so many complicated Doctor Strange words. I'm definitely gonna nail all of these pronunciations. But anyway, one of my favorite card backs in the game. I think this character probably has like one of my favorite sets of art. Which I think I say that like almost every new set about one of the characters. But just I love the vibes, man. I love the vibes. Alright, Doctor Strange. Ranged character, makes sense. He's a wizard. He shoots things out of his hands. 14 health, little on the low side. Makes sense. He's a man. Wong. Ranged. He's a wizard. Shoots things out of his hand. 6 health. Makes sense because he's bald. Turns out Strange has the extra 8 health because of the mustache, the goatee, the hair, everything. So, TDC Jason, if you're ever made into an unmatched character, your health going way down unless you start growing something out there. Jason catching strays. All right, shout out my boys at Dirtle Games. Let's give a quick shout out to Christina Applegate. All right. Move 2 makes sense because they're ranged. Muldoon is like, ha 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 ha. Anyways, Doctor Strange made a dark pact with the thing that gave him the eye, I think. After each combat, so it works as an attack or defense. If Doctor Strange played a card, so it doesn't work on Wong, sorry, you gotta have hair. You may deal 1 damage to him, Doctor Strange. If you do, put that card on the bottom of your deck and draw 1 card. We'll see this in action. Doctor Strange attacks. The opponent doesn't block. Doctor Strange flips over the card, deals the damage. Doctor Strange says, I'd like to play this card again sometime in the future. He takes 1 damage and puts that card, instead of in his discard pile, at the bottom of his deck. Saves it for a rainy day. And then he draws a new card to replace that card in his hand. I love this ability. 1, because recursion is super, super powerful. Daredevil, Achilles, Luke, She-Hulk, all Black Widow, all characters, Winter Soldier, all characters with recursion, and when you're able to recur just a bunch of cards to last longer in fatigue, or just key cards to spear throw your opponent an extra 2 times, is crazy. Being able to like extend the life or use of your 30 card deck, just like stretch it a little bit more, can really make the difference in some games. And being able to just use your best cards again always helps. I do not think Doctor Strange is going to care much about the fatigue aspect of that because he's dealing himself damage, which is not necessarily sustainable in the long run. We'll come back to that. And also the fact that he's drawing cards. But I love the fact that it draws cards too, because let's say in that example when you're attacking, if you have 4 cards in your hand, you attack, you go down to 3, you use the ability, the card is no longer in your hand, but it replaces itself with the draw from Dark Pact. So that allows Doctor Strange to be a little bit more aggressive than characters otherwise would be, because he can kind of control when exactly he gives up hand advantage. And I think that is really awesome. It's a really awesome way to like press the advantage on your opponent. Fits right into what I want to do. And also dealing yourself damage is fun, as Beowulf would point out, but it is a little risky. Right up my alley. And it only works on Doctor Strange, so Wong can't recur anything because he's not the Sorcerer Supreme yet, because he doesn't have any hair. Alright, bald people are now a new meme on my channel, which I don't know how I feel about. Everyone is welcome here, hair or not. Jason, if you win the next tournament, I'll shave my head and cosplay as you at like Gen Con or something. Anyway, love the health dial, because it's the Eye of Agamoto. And Wong looks very, very stern and focused and ready to do a bunch of things. Spoiler alert, I really don't use Wong when I play Doctor Strange. The first card is Winds of Watum. I talked about this a little bit in the set overview, so I'm kind of going to skim over it just because I want to keep this video like below 40 minutes. The Spider-Man one was like 25, which is perfect. Because when I first started making these first impressions videos, they were like 19 minutes. That was like a speedy in and out, record all of them in an hour, get going. And then the baked goods ism slowly started stretching and stretching the medium, and now I think the King and Country ones were like pushing 45, and we're trying to get those numbers back down. So anyways, Winds of Watum, or actually, well, from my perspective, it looks like this. I'm lining up my hand with the card, so from your perspective, it's oh wait, no, yes, the thumb. Okay. This is why the videos are 45 minutes, by the way. 4 value attack, decent. 3 copies. After combat, your opponent places Doctor Strange in a starting space. I said this in the overview video, but I want to say it's just any starting space, regardless of how many players are in the game and who actually started where. I just think that's like more simple. But jury's out on that. Place the opposing fighter in another starting space. So your opponent getting to move you can kind of get more of the choice, especially on 2-player maps when there's only 2 choices, but it doesn't really matter. It's kind of kiting with advantage depending on what part of the board you're on and where your opponent's sidekicks are. But the real kicker in this card is all players shuffle their decks, because when you use the Dark Pact, the cards are going in your back pocket. And you really need them in the front of your pocket, because if you're returning them to your deck, they're probably good cards that you want to play again. But if they're in your back pocket, that means you have to go through the middle pocket to get there. This is an analogy for drawing cards from your deck, by the way. I don't know if that was clear. Winds of Watum lets you shuffle your deck, so now your back pocket is somewhere in the void. But it may not be in your back pocket anymore. So this allows you to reset the cards that you're putting on the bottom of your deck so that you're probably more likely to draw them sooner. Of course, shuffling like might not actually do anything. The card might still be on the bottom, but randomness aside, the card on the bottom of your deck has a higher probability to not be there than to still be there after you shuffle your deck. So just while this card like really doesn't seem like it does much of anything on the first glance, this is a really powerful support card that I think you'd see a difference in a game where you played this like 3 times versus a game where you didn't play it at all, if that makes sense. The next card is Mists of Manapour, and this one is actually where the hand is coming towards you. No, okay, I can't do this right now. Unmatched! Yeah! Let's go! It's a Doctor Strange only 2 value block card with 3 copies of it. It says immediately! Immediately. Defensive immediatelys are great because they will always trigger first at the time of recording. Immediately, discard your opponent's card. The card they attacked with, it's gone. Forever. Maybe not. They reveal cards from their deck until they reveal an attack or versatile card they can play. So you get a little bit of deck knowledge as maybe what's not in their hand. But the deck knowledge you're getting is about blocks and schemes, which is interesting. We'll come back to that. And it's an attacker versatile card they can play. They play that card, randomly put the rest of the revealed cards on the bottom of their deck. So they're putting all those blocks and schemes that they couldn't use on the bottom, which is potentially very good for you to know. If you get Wukong's Phoenix Farming, put it on the bottom of his deck. How do you like that, monkey? You just have to not Winds of Watum in that case, because this shuffles both players' decks. Not together, but respectively. So anyways, this basically says, it's like a reverse timeout, like from Deadpool's deck, where your opponent just like plays a different card than they wanted to, and it's a random card, which I think for the most part will work out all right for you. You're still probably going to take damage just because the value of this isn't really good, but this kind of acts as a super feint. If you have a good feeling your opponent is playing like Beast Form or something, you can Mists of Manapour it and it goes away. This could also be good because if your opponent is playing a deck where they don't want to attack with versatile cards, like maybe they just don't have a lot of blocks, or maybe they don't want to play their feint offensively to do nothing, it's a really good way to kind of like screw them up. So this is just such a good disruption tool, and it stops every attack in the game. Might make it worse, but that's a choice I think I'll be willing to live with, and I often recycle this card with my ability. The next card is the Seven Sons. Don't say Cinnabon. Don't say Cinnabon. It's such low-hanging fruit. Seven Sons of Cinebus. Toot toot. We're riding the Cinebus now. Yeah. Hop aboard the Cinebus. It is a Doctor Strange only 3-value versatile with 3 copies. It says if the value of this card is above 7, ignore its value. How does this card get above 7? Now, why would you want to ignore your own value? Well, you don't, but what's the during combat effect? You may blind boost this card up to 2 times. So that's how we get the card value up. So it's kind of like you're playing blackjack, except with 7 instead of 21. And you know I love taking calculated gambles that may or may not actually be calculated, but you could potentially blind boost this twice and get it up to a 7-value attack. It's not really super efficient in that way because it's like 3 cards for a 7, but we'll take a look at the boost value spread at the end of the video after all the cards are flipped over. But it's a little bit of a risky card. I think we'll see later why you might want to use it, because right now that this I think just looks like a blank 3 to some people, but it's a really solid value block actually, because it's probably going to be a 4 or a 5 on defense, and you're fine with it. Could win you the game if you like play this against a beast form, blind boost twice, it's exactly 7, and now Dracula just like doesn't have enough damage to close out the game. Something like that could happen. But also you could just get it to an 8 and then the beast form is undefended. So risk reward there, but when your back's pushed up against the wall, sometimes the only thing you have left to do break the wall down and keep going backwards, which is my motto in life. I like using this as an attack because you can get big numbers. This is also a card I cycle back into my deck. Next we have the Cloak of Levitation. It is a 2-value versatile Doctor Strange card. 2 copies of it. Oh. And it says, during combat, if Doctor Strange is adjacent to the opposing fighter, ignore the value of your opponent's card. So this is a big middle finger to melee decks, because this is kind of just like a 4th and 5th feint, except it is like a little red eyes and also ignores their value. Although I guess they could still have nasty after combat effects that do something to you. But it's a really strong card because ignoring values is great with an asterisk. It's great for someone, is what I should say. And being able to just like shut down an opponent's big value attack, great. And also it can function as an attack because It'll work like Impossible to See from Invisible Man if you're attacking, but you have to be adjacent. Remember that. This card would be insane if it was impossible to see, but you didn't have to be adjacent. It will be a little telegraphed just because you are double ranged, but I think it'll be good to sneak this in during like a melee character comes up, attacks you, and it's your turn and they're still adjacent to you. You can just like throw that out. Although that might be too telegraphed, although you have a lot of printed 4s, which would be decent feint bait. So some decent mind games in there. I like cycling this back. I think in certain decks, like against feintless characters, like Yanenga or Spider-Man, this could be absolutely clutch. But it does have a low boost value, and sometimes you need high boost values when you're trying to get certain cards up, and we'll see another example of this in just a second. But keep that in mind. Just you playing with the cards that you're cycling back and thinking about the boost values of them as well. Yeah. The next card is Eye of Agamoto. I love this card. It's a scheme. You only have 2 copies of it. It says shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 5 cards, gain 1 action. So this allows you to kind of push the envelope, be pretty aggressive with your hand size, especially using your ability. It won't go down, but you can kind of like force your opponent out. And then if they actually counterattack you, your hand size goes down. You can play this, draw back up to 5, and now you're ready to step on the gas pedal again. It gains you an action. So there's combo potential here, and this is basically what the Bullseye scheme tries to be. I don't want to say I'm going to like, Andy, I don't want to play with you anymore to Bullseye now that Doctor Strange is out. But Doctor Strange is looking pretty nasty. This also shuffles your deck, so the winds effect where the bottom of your deck can might flutter up to the top, and drawing 5 cards, depending on what your deck size is, that give you a lot of options. The next card is No, Really, I'm a Doctor, which it has to be in the running for one of the best card names. Doctor Strange scheme, 2 copies and a boost value of 3, which is important. Reveal a card from your hand and put it on top of your deck. Doctor Strange or a friendly fighter adjacent to him recovers health equal to that card's boost value. This card can be crazy good. I think generally it's just like fine, it's going to heal you for 2. But this has a lot of other implications that are really good. You have a couple other boost value 3s in this deck, which means you can pretty consistently heal for 3. I think for the most part you heal Doctor Strange with this just because you are taking ability damage, in my case, pretty often. And so that getting the extra health back is amazing. But you're also putting a card on the top of your deck. You have cards that care about blind boosting. So No, Really, I'm a Doctor is a great way to manipulate the outcome of a future event. And you can kind of, not guarantee, but you can, if you just put like a 3 value boost back on the top of your deck, you're like, well, 7 Sons of Cinebus is fine at a 6 value and there's no need to push it, and you can just blind boost it once. Because this is not like the big reveal from Houdini's deck. You can blind boost this up to 2 times, which means 0, 1, or 2. I would double check just because the wording is different. If, like big reveal, you have to choose at the beginning before activating. Like you either have to boost twice at the same time, or you can boost once, see what the number is, boost again. I'll wait for a developer ruling on that, but definitely the one at a time would make that card a lot stronger. So yeah, No, Really, I'm a Doctor can help you set up some great things if used first action. One thing I would like to note is that Dark Pact says after each combat, when you play schemes, you're not in combat, so you can't use your ability to get schemes back. So the 2 copies of each scheme you have are the only ones you'll get to play. And if you blind boost one of them away, that's kind of stinky poo-poo. The Wong card in this deck is Steadfast Disciple. It's a 2 value, versatile. You have 3 copies of it, and it says, after combat, if Wong is adjacent to the opposing fighter, deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter and draw a card. So it's a great anti-melee tool. The value is kind of not great, although it does have the effects of Snark and Wily in one, but it's just to the opposing fighter if they're adjacent. I think there are better things to attack with, and I don't necessarily want to say better things to block with, because if Wong is getting attacked and you have that card and they're adjacent to you, you may as well play it. And both things are contingent on the opposing fighter being adjacent. So it's all or nothing. You're either dealing a damage and drawing a card, or neither. So if you're getting a ranged attack at Wong and you play this, it's like a blank 2. Which isn't great, especially for a 6 health sidekick. Although I guess you could heal him, but that is healing that Doctor Strange isn't getting for spamming Dark Pact. So overall, I think this card is just like kind of mediocre. But in my experience, you generally don't have to rely on Wong. We'll see why at the end. That sounded like super like ominous. I'm just gonna like explain why Doctor Strange, you can just play him as a solo hero if you want. So anyways, Rings of Ragador. It's a 4 value attack, any 3 copies, and it says after combat, if you won the combat, your fighter and each friendly adjacent fighter to them. Each friendly fighter adjacent. I said the wrong order. Sorry about that. To them, recover health equal to the damage dealt. This card helps sustain you potentially forever. It's a 4 value attack. You're probably going to win the combat, which is nice. I think most of the time this is just going to heal like 1 damage, maybe 2. But on the off chance that you find your opponent really screwed out of luck, you can attack with this into a regroup or no block at all and heal for 3 or 4, which is crazy. And I guess the use for Wong is you could use him to soak hits for Doctor Strange and body block, and then just turn around and Rings of Ragador the opponent, and then heal Wong back up, and he can operate as a meat shield. The only problem is, this card says any. It really should say Doctor Strange on it, because if you use this as Wong, you can't cycle it with Dark Pact. And I love cycling this with Dark Pact, because if you land it undefended, you heal 4, take 1 to put it back in your deck. That's net 3 healing. And you're not going to do that every time, but if you just keep spamming attacks on your opponent, I feel like eventually you'll hit big. That's what I say with this card too. And I don't know, I constantly keeping this threat alive, constantly making your opponent either wanting to play feints or value blocking, can be really good, because there are some other things they want to feint and or value block that if they're constantly scared of this card, it's just a nightmare for them. And positioning, especially, you'd probably just keep Wong and Doctor Strange next to each other, also because of this card. We'll talk about that in a second. Spoiler alert. And yeah, just healing. The famous baked goods quote is, healing, like having healing is better than not having healing. So just the existence of this card, I think, will terrify your opponent, and I would probably give this like the Devil of Hell's Kitchen treatment, where you're just cycling that and trying to attack with it as much as possible, and just make your opponent's attacks do nothing to you. Also, key thing to note, it's value 4, so like against Robin Hood, this is always going to trigger. Poor Robin. Just every new Unmatched set just digs the hole deeper and deeper for him. It just twists the knife a little bit more, which is good. Robin must suffer. Anyways, the next any attack is Bolts of Balthak. It is a 2 value, any attack only, with a boost value of 3, so it has some synergy with No Really I'm a Doctor. And it says, during combat, you may blind boost this card. More blind boosting, yay. After combat, if you won the combat, gain 1 action. And you have 4 copies of this card. So this is like the combo powerhouse of this deck, because you can just attack with it, blind boost, gain an action. Maybe attack with another one. Blind boost, win, gain an action. Throw out a 7 Sons of Cinebus. Sure, blind boost it, deal some damage. I have Agamoto and do the whole thing over again. That's how most of my Doctor Strange games go. And then I landed a Ragador undefended and heal back. It feels so good to do that. The one thing I do want to mention about Bolts and 7 Sons is that when you blind boost, that card going into your discard pile, you're not getting back. I pretty much always choose to cycle back both of these cards, especially if I'm blind boosting. And you just need to be cognizant of that, is as the game goes on, your deck will get smaller, but you'll still add cards to it. And at a certain point, there will probably only be like good cards left in your deck. And at that point, the blind boosting gets a little bit, the toll is a little bit heftier. It's heavier price to pay just because when you're blind boosting, you're probably losing a decent card in there as well. And so I love cycling Rings of Ragador back, but it does kind of mess up the blind boost potential a little bit because it is a 1, but I think in terms of balance, that is a-okay. I love that there's 4 copies. I love that it is a boost 3. It's just... yeah, I think you just go. Doctor Strange is just such a cool like combo aggro character, but I also see how he could be like a really strong control character as well. I think you can play this character in so many different ways, and that's why he's so interesting to me. Also because I'm a little degenerate as well. We have Master of Kamartage, which maybe it is the like fighting style, but like it's also the place, right? I need someone who knows more about the DS to kind of clue me in the comments, please. It's a 2-value, any, versatile, and you have 3 copies of it. It says, during combat, if Doctor Strange and Wong are adjacent, this card's value is 4 instead. So this is a blank 2 if they're not adjacent. So I think you generally just move them around the board like they're handcuffed together, so that this card is always online, this card is always getting full value. And it just provides you a little bit more solid value blocking, although it's not like you really need value blocking since this ignores values and this kind of just like pushes big attacks out of the way. Although you also could push a regroup out of the way into like a log, so risk and reward, but that's how it goes. And the last card is Feint, which you have 2 of, and because you have 2 of them, I think there are certain matchups where you cycle this back, even though it has a low boost value. But so yeah, this is the Doctor Strange card package, and as you can see with the Any cards and the Wong cards, this card is just like kind of exists. Like if you have it to block for Wong, you probably just play it. Damage is damage, and card draw is good for this character. This you're probably playing as Doctor Strange more often than not. This you're probably playing as Doctor Strange more often than not so that you can cycle it. This you just play when you can, I guess, and you have feints. So like, Wong doesn't really do that much. He's a lot different from MCU Wong, it seems. Having another ranged body on the board is nice, especially with the potential to throw out some hefty attacks, but I think you generally want to keep them together and just have like a 4 to block with on defense. But my game plan as Strange definitely does not revolve around Wong. It revolves around this card, and 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 this card. So yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but Doctor Strange, definitely my favorite from the box. Definitely in my top 3 favorite characters, like immediately, which between like Bullseye, Raptors, and Houdini, I'm not sure who's getting pushed out, but this character is a lot of fun, and he feels so powerful, but like it could all come crashing down, and you could crash and burn horribly, but that's how I love to go out if I'm gonna go out. So yeah, I think this character can do some nuts stuff, and I am so excited to play him in tournaments. So that was my first impression of Doctor Strange. If I had to give him a rating, oh, S tier, baby, #1, top of the leaderboard. But for everyone else playing it who isn't me, probably like high B. I need to start like kind of like underrating characters a little bit, because like the hype sometimes gets to me, and I'm like, oh, new characters, like this is insane what they do. And like I definitely overrated the Teen Spirit characters like to the high heavens, because that was definitely like the weakest Marvel set, and I was like, yeah, Cloak and Dagger is going to be A tier, and like pretty much all of them are D tier, which is so sad. But like not every character can be A tier. So I think this character, I said what, Spidey was going to be like low mid, low C. This character is probably like high B, if that puts it in any comparison. But I also think this character has the potential to be like mid A, just because of some of the crazy things he could do. So those are my first impressions of Doctor Strange. Please let me know what you think about this amazing, wonderful, colorful character in the comments down below. And there's one more She-Hulk video coming after this, so don't go anywhere. So there'll probably be a box popping up directing you to that video. And don't forget that the link to the Restoration Games order page is in the description down below if you would like to go check it out and get it. There's probably foils that come with it too, I think. I should double check that. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and as always, like, subscribe, and yay!